Okay, are we good? Can we roll?
We're already rolling.
All right. Hey, guys. Thanks for tuning into the Bent Methods podcast. We are here with George Degraaf. What's going on, George? Thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me. Just rolled into Calgary. I had reached out to Jared last week after seeing your post about the concussion and what your plan is coming up here. And we got a little event going on in Calgary. So I figured, you know what? Let's go catch up with the boys.
Do a pod. It's been a while. I haven't seen you in probably, we haven't really hung out in probably 5-6 years. It's probably been even maybe longer than that. But yeah, so I guess let's try to get to know George a little bit. What's going on? You're still trucking?
Yeah. We mostly haul gravel, aggregate to a lot of the concrete plants in southern Alberta, basically anywhere from Calgary south. So that's what I'm doing right now. I just recently got engaged in December, and we're
sweet.
Just planning a wedding.
All the fun stuff.
Yeah.
Ready to drop some bank. You guys gonna go all out for the wedding? You're gonna keep it pretty mellow?
Well, it's gonna be a nice venue. It's gonna be small, so there's just trying to make the guest list and who to cut out and who to keep, and
that's tough.
A little bit stressful for sure.
It's tougher than you think. Yeah, but people always say, it's the best day of your life or whatever, but I was always like, how cool can it be? But it was, honestly, it was awesome. It was the best day of our life, and it was just, you felt so much love, and it was way, way better than I ever expected.
Yeah, so who was the big planner? Did Dom do?
Oh, yeah, I didn't do shit.
Okay, yeah, so I was going to say, I was like, most people say it's so stressful, but to this point, like, Emma's done everything, and she's an interior designer.
Yeah.
And just, like, venue booked, decorator, chef, all that stuff is all booked already, and my one stipulation was I wanted to have good food, and that was it.
Yeah, that's the big thing. So are you guys getting married?
In Lethbridge at the Galt Museum.
Yeah.
It'll hold like 110, 120. So we got a few family members coming from Europe, a couple from England. Don't know whether any Dutch guys are coming yet or not, but there's a queue on the list anyways.
Yeah. Cool.
So
yeah, it's exciting stuff. So let's talk a bit about your pro racing career. So for anyone that doesn't know, I guess, who you are, it's been probably how long since you've raced?
2013 was the last full year that I was racing. We had made a plan to go do the Canadian Nationals, and got through the first 3 rounds. Was kind of hovering around the top 10 kind of thing.
You had a good round in Calgary, didn't you? You and Jared Stock battled it out pretty good. Was that year?
No, that was the year before. And
okay.
Yeah, that was kind of like the stepping stone where I decided, I was like, okay, I've won enough in Alberta. Maybe it's time to branch out. I had got an 8th overall at Calgary and 10th in Edmonton. So then for the next year, we're just like, hey, let's go spend some time down in California and let's go attack these nationals. And so I was able to spend about a month down in California, came home, and we're lucky enough that Raymond, it melts quite a bit quicker than most tracks in Alberta. So we got good training in, and I think at the time the Allisons were still pretty into the racing.
Yeah.
And Moffenbauer and everybody kind of came down to the first couple Southern Alberta races, and I was able to beat them. So I was like, hey, this is a good year. We're gonna go do the nationals. And it just was such an eye opener going out to Nanaimo, and you've never rode a bedrock track, right? It's you think you're like, oh, my setup's good here for Raymond, this is all I've ever rode, and you go out there and it's just felt like shit. And then I only had brought 1 or 2 sets of tires for the whole trip. We were gonna go from Nanaimo to Kamloops and then make our way back to Calgary kind of thing. So I had 1 set of tire for each weekend of racing.
Yeah, and blew both your sets of tires out at Nanaimo.
Yeah, Nanaimo, they're shot. So then, we're not from anywhere around there. So it's like, okay, let's go find these dealerships where we can get an extra set of tires or something for Kamloops. And it was I wish I could have done it a few more times.
Yeah, it's exactly right. It takes time to really kind of get your footing, especially if you only commit to the West, because you do the West and then you got to wait a whole year, and it's kind of like the Nationals are kind of a whole different thing than racing Southern Albertas. So I mean, you can race all the Southern Albertas you want, but you're never going to really the best way to excel in the Nationals is just to get national experience, right?
Yeah. Yeah, I guess the hardest part for me to decide was, like I could go make $1,000 on a weekend at Raymond or something. And it just was so tough to find any sort of support to be able to go to the nationals,
Exactly.
right? Like you need a big expense to drive all the way down to Ontario, and even going across the ferry to Nanaimo and stuff is expensive.
Yeah.
So I ended up, so then in Calgary was the third round, and it was like, okay, we got through Kamloops and Nanaimo, and I was, I think 11th or 10th in points, and just said, okay, like let's start to open her up a bit in Calgary. And I think Regina had just come back on the schedule too. So those were two tracks that I had known from years past that we had, gone on the odd weekend kind of thing. And then I ended up breaking my wrist there pretty bad.
At Regina or Calgary?
No, in Calgary.
Okay.
Yeah.
I don't remember that, but yeah.
Little hump before the 110.
Yep.
Oh, that's right.
Watch that.
That's right. I forgot about that. This was what year? 2013?
Yeah. Mr. Jenkins. He was actually, or Jenkinson?
Yeah.
What's his name? Yeah. He was on for one of your guys' podcasts. Yeah. He was the first guy to me, and I just remember him coming to talk to me, and I was just seeing these stars going around my head. It was the first time I hit the ground hard enough where I was like, I seen stars.
Yeah.
And just looked at my wrist, and it was kind of poking out both ways, and I was like, okay, well, that's a wrap on 2013.
So were you planning on trying to go East Coast? And
yeah, the goal was, if I could be around top 10, that we were going to go out east. Yeah. Cool. And Mark Boot, like obviously him.
Yeah.
But they're just older people, successful guys, have their own companies, and they had committed to being like paying for my fuel to go all the way across.
That's awesome.
Yeah. So I was excited to do it, and just felt like there was more confidence that, you had more people behind you kind of thing. Yeah. So I was like, hey, it's time to like layer on the line a little bit, and it backfired a bit. So, and the worst part was his first lap of time qualifying.
Jeez.
Yeah.
So what were you riding that year? What bike?
Hondas. Yeah.
Hondas.
So,
I forgot all about this.
To this day, we have a conversation, and we'll just blame it on the air forks.
Yeah. That's when they went to the single function air fork, right?
Yeah, they were terrible. Yeah. It didn't matter like what we tried, how like PSI, whatever, they were just junk.
It's a strange period in time where everyone decided, let's go for a single function air fork, and it just never worked.
Yeah. Well, and then everybody decided to do it, right? Then,
exactly.
Then like Cowie and Suzuki started to have it, and they had the little chambers on the bottom, and I don't know. At that point, I was like, okay, I'm ready to retire.
Yeah. So yeah, what was I just gonna say? Something else I want. Oh yeah. So when you turn, what year did you turn pro? You were pretty young, weren't you?
Yeah. Would have been 2016. No, 2016.
You're just talking. 2006.
2007. I had just turned 16.
Because I remember you went to Regina for like maybe as an intermediate even, and you like qualified 4th or something.
Yeah. Well, there was actually there was a little thing behind that. So at the time there was Dustin Hayes and like Brady Sharon and all these different guys. Well, like, you have 10 or 20 intermediates or like first year pros kind of thing, and they're like, I just want to go follow like Teddy Mayer and all these top guys, right? While Dustin Hayes and all these guys, they just right away cut the track, and that's when they came into this rule that you couldn't cut the track, right? So then they ended up all having to go to the LCQ. So then I ended up getting bumped up like 4 positions. So then I was sitting here like looking, that guy's monster stickers. And at that year, actually, I had no decals on my bike. They were licking stick numbers.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
I've had that 1 or 2 times. Maybe once as an intermediate, I qualified. I don't know I can't remember where it was, but I qualified like 6th, and I just felt like a boss. But then I went out and I shit the bed in the moto. Yeah.
We were, Well, you just like for that brief moment, you believe that you're like, okay, I can do this, right? Like I had that one blistering fast 1 lap, and then these guys got an extra 10 or 12 more horsepower in their 250S, and you don't get a jump, and it's like, let's just panic and crash every 5 turns. And that was like my first 2 nationals. I think my dad just wanted me to walk home.
Really?
Yeah.
Not happy.
No, not happy at all.
I don't know how many people actually have. I guess there's a lot of East Coast kids that do really well, like Gopher. But man, it took me about 5 nationals till I actually had one decent one. I don't know. It's weird. Like something just, I was like struggling, getting like 19th, 20th, and then all of a sudden and I think it was Edmonton 2009 or 2010. All of a sudden I just whipped out a 13th, and then the next weekend I whipped out a 12th, and the next weekend I whipped out an 11th. It was just like, I don't know, something just clicks at a certain point. But yeah, everyone goes in and thinks it's going to be a gravy train, or not a gravy train, but they think they're going to do pretty well, even if they qualify well. And then just racing is at that level is totally different.
Yeah, you got to have a little bit more strategy. Like when you're racing just like the Alberta stuff, well, you and I know that it's like, okay, well, there's maybe 3 fast guys, so you're confident and you're willing to lay it on the line. And then you go to these nationals and like initially you're like, okay, I've won every race this year. I can go to these nationals and I can run with these guys. And maybe you're good for 5 or 6 minutes, like, because that's what you're used to in these little
sprints.
Little sprints. And so for me, I was like, I could run a good pace, but just for 5 or 6 minutes. And then I'm like thinking about, just losing my mind more or less. And I think I had to a person has to like slow it down and be like, you know what, if I don't get a whole shot, that's fine. Let's just make it through the first couple laps and we'll find a rhythm. And, that's when you start having some better results.
Exactly. That's one thing I do wish, like looking back on when I first turned pro, I was so like antsy and I just wanted to top 10s. That's all I thought about.
Yeah.
If I would have just like slowly eased my way in and just like finished every moto and slowly built every round, I think it would have done a lot more. It would have set me up a lot better. But I mean, hindsight's 2020, I guess, right?
Yeah. Well, and I think it just all comes with maturity. Like, maybe we won't talk about your last year, but the year before, you obviously became a lot more consistent, right? And with top 10 like every weekend pretty much. Yeah. That was like when I went into the 450 class, like when I started getting some of those top 10s, it felt like I wasn't ever pushing. Like I just was like, okay, like just ride.
Yeah.
I know that, by the end of the race, like my fitness was almost good enough to make it the full moto, but most guys are crunching by the end anyways.
Yeah.
That I was like, if I just ride, just keep her on 2 wheels, I'm probably going to be top 10. And if you can do that for a year or two and then maybe find that speed and aggression, like you have confidence wise, that like your little races and bring maybe you do better. I don't know.
I don't know. It almost seems to me like sometimes some of my best races, like lap time wise compared to the leaders, are the motos that I'm just like flowing and I'm just not really pushing, because a lot of the times when you're pushing, you end up over braking into corners and you're stopping and starting in your corners. If you just kind of find a flow, even though it might not feel like you're going faster, your lap times will show you're faster just because you're kind of flowing. And just kind of the way the track sets up on a national day, it's more like it hurts you to go like hard into a corner, brake really hard, and then jam on the gas coming out, rather than just like coming in, maybe rolling into the corner, getting on the gas a little earlier, a little smoother, and just carrying your speed. It all comes down to momentum at the end of the day.
Yeah. Well, and if you're going in with that mindset, you're like, I want to hit my marks more than I want to, blast for a year or like for a lap hard kind of thing. Sorry, Dom just distracted me. I don't know. I said year.
For a year. You're ruining the podcast.
Yeah, peripheral vision. I had that a few times racing too. It's like,
jeez.
Yeah.
All right. There's one more thing I want to talk about before we get into the concussion talk. What was it?
Should have wrote it down.
I was thinking about it on my bike ride today. So get this. I have a Purelator package in Ogden today. So I'm like, I'll get my cardio in and go pick up my package at the same time. So I ride my bike 45 minutes to Ogden, straight headwind the whole time. I get there and I brought my little backpack because I didn't know what I was picking up. It turns out it's this huge box. So I ride all the way home with this huge box, 45 minutes. Luckily there was a tailwind. It only took me maybe 40 minutes. So fuck.
What was in the box?
Clutches.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I got
Yeah, we can't like be left in suspense.
This long of a box.
Yeah. There's
no,
lots of times you get a big box and then you open it up, it's another box.
No, it was
Yeah.
actually.
and then
There was some clutches from shout out to Recluse and Mongoose. Mongoose Machine sent me some clutches. I didn't know what it was. I honestly was like, what the hell is this? Yeah.
You think anybody remembers me?
Oh yeah. A lot of
Oh,
a lot of
lots.
our followers know you.
I just don't know if people are really looking at Instagram right now.
Yeah, that's true. Check. We good? Still good?
We're live.
Live in the possum hole. Okay.
Where's the background music?
Oh,
You had that
You
after?
gotta add it in an iMovie.
Who picked that?
We were just me and Keelan. The first time we did our first one, we were just like fuck. It just was like one of those samples on the iMovie, and we just picked it. So, okay. All right. So, how was the transition like leaving racing? I know you tried to kind of make a comeback one year. So how did you deal with moving away from racing into kind of your life now?
Yeah, it was quite difficult actually. I would say the dieting end of things was probably the easiest transition because, for so long, 15 years of our life, it's like you're monitoring everything, training and all that stuff. And yeah, so after racing was done, I just was like, I want to kind of go live my life a little bit like all my buddies are telling me about, right? So just kind of went on a bender for a bit of a year, like never really monitored anything. And I got into trucking and just like I had the goal that I was like, I wanted to buy a house, and I was like, just realized that I was like, unless you're going to be a top 5 guy in Canada, I wasn't going to make a living.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I was like, okay, I need to just go as hard as I possibly can work wise. So I went into the oil field and like had this rig job for a little while where you're doing like 20 days on, 4 days off, back on the rigs again. So like I was able to like pay whatever I owed at the Honda dealership at the time and then just like any sort of debt whatsoever and then save my money and buy a house, and then bought a house. And like I think us motocrossers were so goal driven and we just want to like keep climbing that mountain always, right? And then once you kind of just get to the top, it's like, well, what's next, right? So after I got a house, I was like, okay, like, maybe it's time to settle down. So then you have a girlfriend or whatever. And it was like, the first kind of relationship I had, it didn't pan out. But then it's like, okay, well, let's just go back racing, right? Because that's where you always get that high and adrenaline.
Yeah.
And
this was when you came back in like 2017, was it?
Yeah. I just said, you know what? Like I bought a used bike actually off of Kijiji, and I ended up like grenading the transmission twice on it. So then that's why I bought the KTM. But I believed that I could come back and just win again. And that wasn't the case. Like you had just gotten back into racing, I think at that time too, after your concussion. You had Riley Gallup, Keelan Meston, and it was in Matichuk actually. Like,
yeah, he was fast. He came when he had his little brief comeback into motocross there.
Yeah. Number 73, I think he was. Yeah.
Yeah.
Like he never, like I remember when he was really young, like he was quick on 80s or whatever. And then
he's super talented.
Yeah. And then went off like road racing and never seen him again. Then all of a sudden he shows up, and I think the one national I seen him at was in 2012. He's like black bike and like pretty sketchy. And
he was like smoking cigarettes and
and that's what he told me. And then he went on
drinking beers on the line and like, just like, then he like, holy crap. And then all of a sudden this guy turns it around and becomes a 3-time gold medalist X Games.
Yeah.
So that's crazy.
Yeah. But it was just, like I knew that if I was going to make a real comeback in 2016, it was like, well, I can't work 14, 15 hours in the truck and think that I can compete with these guys on weekends. Like, I kind of was running out of talent.
Yeah.
So, it was the following week after the Raymond race. I was like, Kate, like I either need to get more riding in during the week or, like try to figure out some speed with this KTM kind of thing. And I ended up just crashing hard. Like my uncle Pete actually got a better start than me on this Wednesday night moto, cut me off, and I piled into the ground. And I had a shoulder operation a couple of years like before I quit racing.
Yeah.
And it was like the same thing. Like I popped my shoulder out and I was like, okay, you know what? Like I can't afford to take these risks anymore and, you know, potentially lose my job, not have this income to like
You have a
pay,
house,
pay
right?
for a house and stuff. So yeah, I just threw in the towel and said, you know, I got to do this more for fun.
Yeah. Yeah, it's hard to find that balance after, like, yeah, it's scary to think of life after racing, but yeah, I guess that's kind of what you're saying about, you know, you're always climbing that ladder. You're like, as a racer, you're always so goal oriented that you just need that, you're searching for that next step. And then, yeah, you bought a house, and I guess that's kind of, I guess we touched on this in the last podcast that hasn't come out yet, but you know, that's kind of why I quit my job, because for so long I started out a laborer, then I wanted to be a welder, and I became a welder, and then I wanted to be the best welder, and then I became the best welder, and I wanted to be a fitter, then I became the best fitter, and then you want to be lead hand. Then from that point, it's like kind of like I don't really know what like I don't really see what's next. So I guess that's kind of why I quit my job, and not just to go racing or to go do this ride, but just kind of looking for that next thing. And I don't know, I feel like I just need to kind of do something else and challenge myself to kind of, you know, grow as a person. So
Yeah. Yeah, I think it's super awesome that you're going to be able to, you know, follow your dream kind of thing. I think that a lot of guys can get into some sort of, you know, depression after racing. Like
sure.
I most definitely went through it, where you're just so lost, right? Like, like I can cork out a 12-15 hour day working. That's no problem. But it's like, what happened to the excitement after work, like on your weekends and stuff? And, you know, everything costs so much money now. So it's not like every weekend we can go do something that's adrenaline filled. And, I guess, so the toughest part has been trying to keep yourself motivated and keep writing down your goals and what you want to pursue next.
Yeah, that's definitely a big thing. So I guess we can probably talk about concussions and stuff now. So your dad's had kind of a rough road with concussions, or even just one. Is it just one concussion, or?
Well, it was multiple concussions. I believe that it first started when he was younger, or that's what they've come to terms with, that like when he was younger, he was a boxer.
Oh yeah, that's
and then when I listened to your podcast, where you just kind of talked about it a little bit, it made so much sense, where, you know, we're such like competitive people that, you know, when we get down and we're seeing, you know, stars and we're riding backwards on a track, like, why didn't somebody ever teach like our previous generations before that, okay, it's like, you need to take this break. Well, no, like, we need to finish this race. Like all these things, you feel like they could be somewhat preventable, right?
Yeah, I think a lot of it is people, I don't know what it is. People were in denial, or they didn't want to, maybe they didn't know, maybe, I don't know. But it's just like, even when you go to your family doctor, or you go to the emergency, they don't take it serious enough. I think like they'll quickly write you a doctor's note for a sprained finger, but they don't do anything about concussions.
Yeah. Well, and I think so much of like society today is like, what can we complain about so we can get a ticket to say I don't have to go to work?
Yeah.
Right? So these doctors eventually start thinking that like you or I are mental, where, you know, every weekend we're throwing ourselves on the line, or in my dad's case, you know, like it's just like this bullheadedness where it's like, okay, nothing's wrong.
Yeah.
And then when something is finally wrong, you go in and these doctors are just like, oh, this guy's mental, right?
Yeah.
Like,
yeah, it's very frustrating. I guess you probably listened to the podcast I did, but yeah, I was in a pretty bad place for over a year, and I finally went into my family doctor, and I don't know, I was really optimistic about them sending me to a concussion specialist of some kind, or giving me some kind of direction. He literally didn't say anything to me, and just said, okay, how do you feel about, I'll write you a prescription for Zoloft or whatever it was, some antidepressant. And I'm like, really? Like, that's all you got to say? It's all you can offer me at this point? And I felt defeated at that point. I took it for a while. It was not for me. I hated it. But then, yeah, I didn't really see a way out at that point. And I wish like our healthcare could kind of provide something a little better. So what has kind of your dad mainly been suffering from?
Yeah, well, I guess I should like talk about like post boxing, like with motocross like, so he had all that stuff while he was young, and then had a couple concussions with racing, and then you just keep getting back, and he actually had quit racing and was full-time like my mechanic and going to the races, and then he would just more ride for fun at home kind of thing. But after he sold his trucking company and stuff, like we had gone like all in, we were gonna go racing. And for me, like I don't know, like it's much different for you. You do a lot of this racing on your own, where for me it was like all about family. Like I thrived about having my dad there as my main supporter kind of thing. So he was just working part-time to basically pay what I was costing them for motocross. And he ended up slipping on the ice at home and hit his head on the cement. And then, like just the stupid people we are, we just get up, all right, let's go back to work. And then that same day, he's taken a leak off the side of the backhoe, and the latching system didn't work on the backhoe, and the gust of wind caught the door and just smashed him in the back of the head. And then, I don't think he fully realized like what he was feeling, but then he just said, okay, like, you know what? I don't even need to work. Like, he had been very successful his whole life with the company and stuff. Like, let's just go racing. So then we're going to racing, and we start to notice like just moods and like he had sensitivity to light and like had ringing of the ear and stuff like that. So like we made it through the race season, and we said, okay, like we need to go get some MRIs. We need to like figure out what's going on with him, right? Because there was considerable difference, and I think we all become used to who he is as we are around him the whole time, right? Where most people like hadn't seen him in a while. It's like, hey, like what's going on with your dad? And
the
it's
contrast,
like,
kind of.
So then it's like, well, okay. And so then he finally goes, and like at this time, like I would say that the last year I went racing and he came along was the worst thing for him.
Really?
So then at the end of the year, he's suffering from like nauseousness all the time, and like things are spinning around, and he actually was like seeing like these green dots in his eyes all the time, and then ringing in the ears, all this stuff. And it's like, wow, like, like clearly he needs a break, but it didn't matter how long his break was, it just wasn't getting better. So then they looked into neurologists and stuff like that, and the first diagnosis was that he had ALS, like from his concussion. So it like sends impulses to your nervous system, right? Well, where the damage was in his brain, like he started to lose like calf muscle and muscle on the bottom of his feet. Well, that's how like ALS starts, right? So they basically told my dad, like, you got a couple of years to live. And we're like, what? Like, he's totally healthy guy. We're racing motocross, like, and now he has ALS. I'm going to lose my dad.
How long, what year was this? Is 2013?
Yeah, this is 2013. And so like, it's at that point, like your love for motocross starts to change, and it's like, we need to like be very serious about this. Right. So then, you're just really scared, like all the time, because it's like, well, like, is this true? Like could have this, been something that he had before, but no, like now it's been 10 or 11 years that he's like suffered with this stuff. Right. Yeah. So, then reached out to some more doctors, and it's like, oh, it's depression, and like, let's prescribe you with this drug, and let's prescribe you this drug. And, talking to you or talking to somebody who has had concussions before knows what you feel, right? Yeah. Where some of my dad's friends are like, got down to the point to saying it's all mental. Yeah. Like
I guess you don't know. That's what I said in my little podcast there. I said, no one really understands how serious it can be until it's too late. And I guess you don't know what you don't know. And that's why I want to do this ride. I want people to know that this is a thing, and you're not crazy, and you're not a bitch if you're suffering from this stuff. So yeah.
Yeah, it's life changing
Yeah.
for sure. Like it's just, and now, okay, so it's been 11, 12 years or whatever. And so now he's, excuse me, bro. He went to the university in Lethbridge, and they got like these MRI machines, and it's like, okay, I don't care. I'm just going to pay for it. I want to see like what all damage is done kind of thing. So 10, 11 years later, all of a sudden you see all these damages that he has because there's being able to look so much more into depth of like what his injuries were kind of thing. And, you know, like you've told me with your success at Revelation Health Center, I think that, you know, because of all the things that my dad went through, Vancouver, Calgary, wherever he had gone to like get help for this concussion stuff, he's like, I'm just going to shut the curtains,
just over it,
block everybody out, and I'll deal with this on my own. And he's not like a complainy type. He'll just whatever, like just bulldog it. Right. But now it's good to see like just things are starting to come along. And I don't know, like, what do you think it was that changed this trend, like over the last few years, where now people are starting to like want to be deeper with research and stuff, right? Like, what was it, because of Crosby? Like,
I mean, I don't know. I really don't know. I think it's just, I guess the CTE or the concussion documentary that came out with football, that definitely shined some light on it. I guess people are just more aware of it too. Like, I guess with all the treatments we have, and with places like Revelation Health Center, there is more awareness for it than there was before. Like, there was really, when I first was like going to my family doctor about this in 2015, there was really nothing. And now there is a handful of places you can go to. It's not covered by Alberta healthcare. It's going to cost you a bunch of money, or some of my work benefits cover it. But it's just, if more and more of these places are popping up, and there is more awareness for it, and people are more aware of it, I guess.
Yeah. So like, could you go a little bit into like what Revelation does? Like, what kind of, like, how did they help you? Like, what was the program that you went through?
So the first thing they do when you kind of go for your assessment, they do a bunch of like tests with your neurological tests. So how much pressure you can apply, like the difference between the pressure you can apply from your left to your right hand, your right to your left foot. And it's actually like they have a machine that you can put weight on. Like after you've had concussions, your coordination and the amount of pressure difference on each, like the strength in each hand, just because your neurons that are firing is vastly very different, surprisingly. So they have this one thing called the Huber Motion Lab, and it's this big machine. It looks like kind of a weird elliptical thing, and you put pressure on these different things, and you put pressure on different things with your foot, and this thing's moving, and you have to hold a certain amount of pressure, and there's like a dial on it, so you see how much pressure you're putting on it, and you can't put too much pressure on it, and you can't have not enough pressure on it. And while this platform's moving, you have to hold these like the same amount of pressure. And so basically just doing that over a course of 6 months, I got a lot better at it. And other thing we did this thing called the interactive metronome, which is basically you just clap to a beat, and it's the same beat, and you have to get as close as you can to the beat. And when I first started, it was the highest they'd ever seen, which is like the farthest away from the beat they'd ever seen. It was like 120 milliseconds. Within about 6 to 8 months of doing it, I was down to around 12 milliseconds off the beat. So I made huge improvements, probably the most improvements they'd ever seen. They were actually probably, I had the most concussions that they'd ever seen coming in there. And I actually was turned away by a couple different clinics before I even went there, because they said I was a liability. There's nothing they could really do for me because I was so far gone, or not so far gone, but I've had so many concussions. And at this point, it was like a year after my last concussion. So the symptoms were so prolonged, and it was just so bad at that point. Another thing is chiropractic, because you don't realize when you hit your head, a lot of times your like you get whiplash a lot of times, right? And you're when you don't, let me see how to word this. So if you have a misalignment in your neck, the neurons aren't firing to all your limbs and everything else properly, right? Because you can't get the neurons through. I don't know. I'm probably fucking this up, but I'm not a doctor, but you know what I mean.
Yeah.
Probably like the same thing with they thought your dad had ALS, right?
Yeah.
So
yeah, like they just say like your brain is obviously so complex and it runs everything in your body, right? So basically what you did with this revelation is like, let's just retrain how to get these things back firing again.
Yes,
right?
Exactly. That's the main thing. And during their initial assessment with like how you put pressure, and they could pinpoint which part of your brain was lacking. So for me, I think it was my I don't know, I can't remember the names of them, but it's the left frontal cortex, and I can't remember the names, but basically they could pinpoint what to do, and they could give you exercises to do at home, so you could stimulate these parts of the brain to help them heal. They give you various exercises. One of them is like, it sounds simple, but you do circles with your foot one way, and you do opposite circles with your hand the one way. So just like little stuff like that you do every day that really stimulates the proper regions of your brain to rebuild those connections. I went there for another big thing with that was diet. They really stressed kind of a ketogenic diet. A lot of people don't really agree with it, but it worked for me. It really helped me a lot, just cutting out carbs basically. And I don't think it was necessarily the keto diet that helped me. It was just cutting out all the sugar and all the stuff that caused that extra inflammation, and supplementation with fish oil, a few other things, turmeric, lots of different things like that really helped me. So I think it was just the combination of a lot of things that really helped me get back on track. And I guess just having that kind of motivation that you're working towards something, it kind of gives you that fire again, and really helps you get back on the right track.
Yeah. Would you say that like so after the first time you went to this place, did you like when do you start noticing the difference that you're like, I feel like I'm starting to make progress here? Or is it just more? It was like
probably with the first month, probably a month before I started really feeling good, and within 8 months to a year, I felt like I was back to 100%.
Yeah. And for many people, like you saying that you feel good.
Yeah.
That's like 60% of somebody who's never had like an injury of any sort.
Exactly.
Like feeling good. Like
exactly.
You're still suffering like from different little things.
Yeah.
But would you say like now, like where you are in your recovery, like you're 110%?
I feel better than I ever have, honestly.
Yeah.
And that's even with another concussion I had this summer. And yeah, it wasn't good again this summer. It wasn't good again. Like I was kind of sleeping a lot, pretty depressed again. But yeah, after I went, at least I kind of know where I can turn to go to. I went back there, and we got things back on track within about a month to 2 months. And they've been really good. And there was one other thing I wanted to bring up about it. Oh yeah, so the way they kind of look at it is like, since I'd had probably 15 plus severe concussions when I first went there. So the way that they describe it is peeling off the layers of an onion. Every time we go for a treatment, we're peeling off a layer of an onion. There's just so many layers. So you have to be consistent with it, and you have to go and you have to do your exercises. You have to be good with your diet, and it's just a combination of a lot of things that you have to commit to be able to get back on track.
Yeah. I guess that's the part, like my dad, I need to get him to have that courage to say, hey, like, Jared's had good luck with this, and like, let's push him to get to this. But I like, it's so hard getting out of that rut now where, you've been down in the dumps for however many years, and you were always the guy that never ever gave up. And, it almost seems like you've, given up now. Right.
Yeah. And I don't blame the guy. Like, after going, you're probably every time you go to a new place to try and fix it, you're really optimistic and you're like, yeah, hopefully this will get me back on track. And then it just lets you down every time. I get it. I get how hard it can be. And I hope you can find some peace and get back to feeling at least okay. Right.
Yeah. Oh, this one brain dead on my
That's okay. We can edit.
Oh, so when they release you out of this program kind of thing, like, do they say, okay, there's still like weak points in your head that you need to watch, or like, do they ever fully heal like the damaged areas?
I think almost in any person, there's always something you can do. Like even in someone that's only had 1 or 2 concussions, there's always, maybe not even any concussions at all, there's always points in your brain that you can stimulate to feel better. I think even if you don't have concussions, you can benefit from doing these exercises and doing this kind of stuff. Another thing that actually helped me out quite a bit was float tanks. I'm going to sound like Joe Rogan here. He talks about float tanks all the time. But so I actually went into their float tank. So it's basically just like an Epsom salt bath. It's only about 3 foot deep, you said?
Not even. I think ours is like 8 inches or something.
Yeah, maybe. But it's so small. There's so much salt that you go in there and lay, and it's just, you float. So you float in this Epsom salt bath. It's heated to the exact same temperature as your skin temperature would be. And you go in there and lay in there for an hour or an hour and a half. Dead silence, completely dark. And you just go there and float. And it's like just being that isolated just gives you your brain that chance to kind of catch up on things. I go still, even if I'm feeling good. Like I think it's a important thing to do because it's just like kind of a meditative state. That's one thing that I've found helped a lot too in my last concussion.
As a trucker, I think go get a massage and then go to the float tank.
There you go.
Sounds pretty appealing. No, I've actually they opened up like kind of a sport thing in Lethbridge too, and I've heard about this float tank and what's that freeze thing or whatever.
Cryotherapy.
Yeah, where one of my buddies, he had gotten in a car accident, had broke his neck, and he was having some trouble. And he went there, and I guess it's just like to relieve inflammation or that sort of thing.
Yeah. I've never actually done cryo. I do ice baths almost every day though. But I don't know. I just think that, man, I still see it every day, or not. I wouldn't say every day. I see it multiple times a year where people will hit their head and then they'll think they're okay, and I can tell they're not okay, and then they're like set on racing, or a kid will hit their head and then they don't, like, their dad wants to maybe push them a little bit to get back out there, and it's just it makes me cringe because I know the damage it can do being there myself. So
but would you say, I know who you are as a person, that when the first concussion you got, was it like hide it from dad?
No, because the first concussion I got, I was knocked out pretty badly.
Okay.
So he was there. The first, I probably had 3 to 4 concussions before I was off 65s. One of them, I crashed on the the first time I ever jumped the international on my 65, I thought I had to go so fast. So I hit it 4th tapped. I landed at the bottom, snapped my Renthal handlebars in half. I don't remember the whole day after that. The next one, it was off the finish line in Calgary. The first time I jumped the finish line, I don't know what happened, but I went straight over the bars off the finish line. Knocked myself out really good there. I was throwing up for about a week.
Yeah, but you were kind of a different animal, because I remember on 60s you're racing with a broken wrist.
Yeah, I had cast on. I was stupid, man. I was
like,
so stupid.
We got a younger Travis Pastrana, hey? Like,
yeah, legit. I looked up the
No Fear gear and everything.
Yeah. Legit though, like Travis Pastrana broke his scaphoid, so he had a thumb cast on at Anaheim 1 in like 2005. So I'm like, I broke my scaphoid. I had the thumb cast on. I'm like, oh, I can go race. So we went and raced, and the thing wouldn't heal. I had a cast on for like 6 months because the thing wouldn't heal. No wonder I'm riding with it. And then we're like, they wouldn't put a screw in it because I was too young. So it healed. It healed enough to cut the cast off. So they took the cast off. I broke it again, put the cast back on, and then I had it on for a long time, cut it off, and then I broke it again. So I'm like, it didn't cause me a lot of pain, but like it caused me pain, but I could deal with it. So I'm like, screw it. I'm just gonna cut this cast off until they're gonna screw it.
Well, and I think he was still winning.
I was still,
Yeah,
He's
like
doing
I
decent,
remember that how it's La Rochelle.
yeah.
His dad, like they were gonna try and do whatever to beat Jared on weekends.
I had
It's
a
like broken
cast
fist.
on.
Yeah. I was quite a bit
stupid.
older, but no, I can recall a few times when I had concussions. It's like my dad looking me in the eyes is like, "Did you hit your head today?" And it's like, "Nope," because I knew that meant that it was like, okay, maybe I got to take a week off,
Yeah.
or whatever. And I can recall one concussion. I had like a bad one. I come home and we had a dog that was gone for like 3 years already. And I told my parents, I'm like, oh, I'm going to go out and see the dog. Right. And
Yeah.
so they're following me and I go behind the shop and I'm puking.
Yeah.
Right. It was like a good concussion. And it's like, you sure you didn't hit your head today, George? Nope. Didn't hit my head.
Not feeling that well.
Yeah. And well, we haven't had the dog for 3 years. And it's like, I don't know, like you're just so uneducated in this stuff where it's like you think that that's okay until later in life. And fortunately there's things out there now that can help you, right?
Yeah, I can't imagine what it would have been like to be someone suffering from this stuff. I imagine that's what kind of like 20 years ago that'd be labeled a crazy person.
Well, you remember Joel Gowing?
Yeah.
Like just terrible. Like that kid, honestly, it scared me. Like we're at the Calgary Pro National. I think he was in intermediate. This is my first year pro, and starts having a seizure.
Ooh.
Like, and is like was stuttering his words and stuff. And it has forever stayed in my mind that I was like that kid just came back and came back and came back. And
Stephen McMorrin, the other guy.
Yeah.
Remember him?
And like, how are they nowadays? Because like the last I saw Joel Gowing, it was terrible.
I don't think they're doing well. Yeah, it can get bad. Yeah, like there's no way of really testing for CTE or something like that, but you got to think that some of these guys have something along those lines. Like,
yeah,
it's kind of scary.
Yeah, it's really scary. Part of me, obviously seeing dad and stuff and like that we couldn't go racing anymore. I'm kind of grateful in a way because we started getting better and better helmets coming out like near the end of my career.
Yeah.
But I never ever rode over my head to the point where I was crashing. So I can't say that I had a lot of concussions while I was riding. But, seeing what, people have dealt with now from concussions or, guys getting paralyzed that we used to race with and stuff, it's like, I'm okay with it, right? Like I'm okay to not go racing anymore.
You quit while you're ahead, I guess, right? Like there's a lot of, I mean, that's the sport though. It's a tough thing. Like my parents are really not happy that I'm still racing. But I mean, I feel good. I know I'm myself, and I know I have faith that I can get back to myself if I ever hit my head again. But yeah, I think it's just those repeated blows to the head that really can impact you. And if you don't let them heal, or you don't take the proper steps to get back to normal before going back out, that's one of the main reasons I want to raise awareness for this. And I guess I don't know.
Yeah. So like you just talked about that you're quitting your job and stuff. So you've got a plan obviously to do some training, getting ready for the nationals, but are you going to kind of do like a bit of fundraiser work, maybe put on some riding schools in Calgary or Raymond?
So yeah, I've actually been lucky enough. I know the president of the AMSA. He was my Team Alberta. He ran Team Alberta last year. So we're going to do 50-50s at all the AMSAs to kind of raise some money. And I think we're going to plan on doing a 10K at one of the Southern Albertas, or maybe it'll be at the Calgary National. I'm not sure, but we're going to do a 10K to raise some money. I'm not exactly sure how that's going to work out, but yeah, we're going to do something beforehand to try and raise some money and get the ball rolling, I guess. Other than that, I'm still figuring all this stuff out. It's pretty, there's a lot of shit to figure out.
Well, and I think a lot of it, like the where they hold the races and stuff, they'd probably be open to having Keelan talks a lot about Dorva and the Drumheller track. And I remember my last year racing there, they had made me a deal that benefited both the track and me, where they basically put me up for a whole week in Drumheller, and they did all of it, where they just put it on Facebook, Twitter, whatever. George Degraaf's going to come do a riding school. Well, between 5 days of being there, I had, I think, 10 guys per day. It was like $150 per person. Well, at the end of the week, I walked away with like $3,500, and I was like, wow, right? But then at the same time, they're happy because it's like they're, you know, they made $3,500 to go towards, you know.
Yeah.
I would think like if a guy did that, went to all these different tracks, put a school on, you know, every other weekend kind of thing.
Yeah,
like,
that's a good idea. That's a really good idea.
Not just for like your fundraiser, but also like to pay for some of your road around Canada.
Yeah, trying to kind of fund the whole deal, because I still don't know how I'm gonna do this whole thing. But I was riding on the trainer the other day, and I blew my fucking crank bearings out, and like I just exploded them, and I took it to the bike shop, and I'm like, I don't know if we can fix this. So already it's like I kind of maybe underestimated the equipment I need. I probably need a backup bike, or I don't know. I gotta figure it all out. We'll see. I don't know. It's exciting. It's a good challenge too. Like as racers, we're always like kind of drawn to a challenge, and I've always wanted to do something crazy like this. So I don't know. Seems like a good time, and seems like a good cause. So.
Well, and you're pretty well known at, like, when you're going across to the Canadian Nationals and stuff, I think there's going to be so many people that are on board with it. Like somebody has been affected in their surroundings, right? Like, you know, it's what's the word I'm looking for? Like, it's just crazy what you're doing, because you don't hear it too often, right? Where somebody's like, let's go racing, and then I want to do a fundraiser and, you know, do something that I'm passionate about, right? Like, whatever I can do to help, I'll be here for sure. Yeah,
it's awesome. I've actually had quite a few people reach out, people that you wouldn't expect. I wasn't really expecting you to reach out to me a couple years ago, and you were asking me about your dad and, you know, kind of what I did to get back on track. It affects a lot of people. We kind of take it for granted how many people it does affect, especially in our sport, because I mean, this is a sport where you're supposed to be tough and a gnarly guy, right? And then you hit your head, and then you think, you got to be that gnarly guy that gets back out there. Like I've been that guy myself, and I think we all have it to a certain extent. So it's life changing, that's for sure. So what do you like? What do you have all planned out, like, as of right now? Details, like, how can people, like, or have you figured out, like, whether somebody just wants to do like an e-transfer? No, we'll have it all set up legit so that people know exactly where it's going. So I had a phone call with a concussion charity foundation yesterday, and we talked for a while about, you know, how we're going to set it up, and it'll be set up so it'll be directly towards a cause. So it'll either be towards concussion research, or it'll be towards concussion therapy, or youth concussions in youth, or something like that. It'll be, I haven't decided, we haven't totally worked out all the details yet. So, and then it'll go towards, so there'll be one foundation that goes towards concussions, and one that goes towards mental health, because, you know, they go hand in hand. So I haven't figured that out exactly, but I'll have a link set up so that you can donate directly to the foundation, so you know that I'm not trying to steal a piece of it or whatever. But
but a little bit of both, right? Like, I mean, you're obviously going to need help with some hotels, and
I mean, anyone that wants to help out, I mean, basically just funding it myself right now. I've had like the guys at the AMSA are, I think they want to do this to try and help support me, like the 50-50 stuff, to try and help support the journey. So that's sweet that those guys want to do that to try and help me out. And I don't know, maybe I'll just take a slice of that and help pay towards some hotels, and then I can put the rest in towards the fund, their foundation. So I don't know. We'll see. There's a lot to work out. So hopefully, I'll figure it all out at some point, I guess, right?
Yeah. You got anybody saying that, like, hey, I want to, like, follow you for, like, through a couple cities or something, bicycle wise, like, hop on beside you, let's go?
I hope so. I hope I get some more people. There's been a few people we've been talking with. I've been talking with, so, like, my friends, they want to maybe meet in Medicine Hat and do the last leg of like 150 or whatever K. So that'll be cool. I would like to actually get it'd be sweet to try and get like a whole bunch of people to try and meet me in like Strathmore and do the last like 50K or whatever it is. Get like a huge group of people and do the last 50K together. That'd be kind of pretty cool. Yeah, but I hope people do join me and can, even if it's just for like, you know, if they live in, like, I'm going to be going through Ontario, Manitoba, Saskatchewan, right? So hopefully people that even live by can come and join me for a while. That'd be cool. And yeah, I have had a couple people reach out and they want to help me with driving and stuff. So I don't know. There's a lot of details to work out, but I'm sure it'll work out. So
Yeah. Well, there's obviously a lot of guys that you're gonna have like around Calgary that probably want to help you do it.
yeah,
Like I said earlier in the podcast, I mostly truck like Calgary south, right?
yeah,
So I'm ready like planning my attack. Like let's like grab like a couple of big things of water and just like out the window, give you guys a couple showers
yeah.
on the
That's
way.
a good
kind
idea.
of thing,
That's
hey?
sweet. Yeah,
I'll set up my dash cam too.
yeah. There you go. Oh shit. All right. Yeah. Got anything else to add, Chris? Any questions?
Well, I was want to go take it back a little bit here to like back to some of the concussion stuff and racing.
Yeah.
And, you know, I grew up racing dirt bikes with you guys and stuff and played other sports like hockey and skiing and whatnot. And obviously in racing, we hit our heads hard because we're going fast and we stop fast and there's no sliding in the dirt.
Yeah, and a lot of it is
basically.
like you're hitting your head, you're tumbling,
You're
hitting your head again, tumbling.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So, you know, you talked about the repetitive blows, your dad boxing and stuff like that. I know I've seen in other sports like hockey where kid hits his head and they pull him off the ice and he's crying on the bench because he wants to go back out there. But, you know, because they have a medic on the bench, they're not letting him go back out there.
Yeah.
Do you think you guys would have experienced all this concussion stuff if we had better medical teams at the
No.
track to make you not go?
Yeah. I mean,
I know you say you hit it from your family type of a deal, but
yeah.
Yeah, I just think that there was so little knowledge about it, obviously, right? That it's like when it's just your dad asking you and nobody else around is saying like, hey, how, like, what's the severity of this? Like, all else failed, just hide it, right?
Yeah, I agree. And I think definitely I wouldn't have because there were some times I hit my head so hard, I didn't know where I was parked. I didn't know where I couldn't find my way back to my trailer.
And
Guess what? I wouldn't race the next day.
I was gonna say,
And I was like 12 years old.
You're lining up for Moto 2.
Yeah,
like,
it's stupid. Like,
Yeah.
honestly, if there's one thing I could do is, like, if I could somehow get involved with the Triple Crown and, like, they do enforced concussion tests in the States. I think we should be too. Because there's a lot of guys that, I mean, Colton talked about it in the podcast we did. He said he knocked himself out silly in Calgary, and he went and raced the next weekend.
Yeah.
And then then
and
he
got hurt.
Yeah.
You know, and is that because he wasn't 100% aware of what he was doing on the bike?
It could be.
Yeah, and for
then-
him
him
too,
off.
like it's like that competitive side, right?
Yeah.
It's like, well, I'm like I've got all these obligations sponsor wise.
Yeah,
whatever,
and there's not a
like,
whole lot of money floating around Canadian Moto, so you got to get out there as much as you can.
Yep.
Yeah,
I mean, I don't know. It's
I remember seeing that crash.
That
too,
was a
he
bad
had
one.
in Calgary. Yeah, so smooth, but sometimes when he hit the deck,
Yeah.
holy. Yeah.
yeah. That's a good question though. I do think that no, I wouldn't have gone through what I have, but I mean, hopefully I can pay it forward and shine some light on it so people don't do that. I mean, I hate to see when kids hit their head, they're not feeling good, and then dad's like, "Hey, get back out there." I mean, like this, it makes me sick. Like, makes me cringe because I've been the guy that's been like my dad never forced me to go back out there, but I was always the guy that was like, "Yeah, I'm going back out there." I didn't fucking care, right?
Yeah. So you're thinking maybe like when they have riders meeting in the morning or something, just to like speak a little bit about it on weekends kind of thing, right? Because, you know, there's even lots of parents, I bet, that are much older than us that have no education on
No
what's
idea.
out there. And it's
Well-
like maybe started having kids later and now their kids are racing, and it is just like that trend where it's like, let's go racing. I'm putting all this money into
Yeah.
it. Like, it's just stupid, right?
Yeah, we didn't drive all the way out here to Walton to for you to hit your head in the first moto and then not go out and finish the weekend, right?
That is a tough pill to swallow.
It's
but
tough.
I mean, it's a tough pill to swallow 20 years down the line.
But
when
honestly,
you're running into issues and doctors think you're gonna die in a year because
if you look at the big picture, when you're on 80s, that doesn't mean shit. Who cares if you fucking take a week and a half off? You're on 80s. You're not making millions of dollars. Like, what are you really gonna lose?
Yeah. Like I like it's funny you say that. It's like my dad's like, well, you know, like I remember one time riding with a broken collarbone and a broken hand, and my dad's like, well, like just we got to salvage points this weekend, and it's like, what, for a 125 junior championship? Like, where's that plaque now? Like,
no idea.
When I sold my house, it's like I've got like 10 boxes of these trophies that I've not looked at for, you know, like, because whatever, I went pro at 16, and all those years that I was pro, like I never took them out of the boxes, and I really don't care. Like, and I don't think about it at all. Lots of people say, oh, you had such a successful like time, like as a pro in Alberta too. And it's like, you know, like, yeah, it's lots of memories, but those plaques, they don't mean shit.
No, exactly. Like, really, at the end of the day, it's not worth it. You're risking your health for what, really?
Yeah,
for
at
really
that time,
what?
it's like, we're gonna be the next factory rider. I'm gonna be, you know, GDR's next guy.
Well, like, you probably would honestly be better off if you just took the time off and got back to yourself before you just went out there and smacked your head again or whatever you're gonna do, right? Like, even just me racing with casts on, I can't believe it. We were cutting casts off to go race Super Saturdays. Like, what were we thinking?
yeah, it's the end of the race season, and no, I still gotta be out there.
Yeah,
I was just that guy, though, I guess.
Yeah, I think, like you said, though, like that's such a good point. If a person can, you know, just get people a little bit more educated, like motocross is so expensive, and you still see it all the time where like these dads are like, okay, like let's buy this kid a helmet that's 2 times too big.
Yeah, he's
gonna grow into it. Like, yeah, it's a $400 helmet, and the kid boinks his head like, you know, on a 50, but he's still hitting his head. And, you know, by the, like, that's how all this stuff starts. It's like, well, you know, like you're already spending $4,000 on a little 50.
Yeah.
Like, buy your kid the right size helmet.
Well,
right?
Look at these dads, 80K truck, 100+ K trailer, 10K bike. How many of them does he have? Wheels to go with it. What's $400 helmet?
Yeah.
Go spend thousands of dollars on helmets. Like, that's the important stuff.
Yeah, I would much rather see a bike that has no decals on it. It is maybe
Stock
2
bike.
years old, but that kid has, you know, like I still am a believer in the neck brace, and a good helmet.
Yeah.
Well, it's like boots. Do you go out there in rubber boots? No.
Wow, I could dig up pictures from when I was on 50s. we were looking at some stuff for wedding pictures, and so my first ever race was on a PW 50 at the Lethbridge Arena Cross, and I was in coveralls.
Oh yeah, I can imagine. I can picture
boots.
it. Yeah. Didn't your dad used to wear or was that just when he was mechanicking? For he used to wear coveralls
all the time. And his headset. He was just all about the racing. He's so serious.
So how's your dad doing now? Like, what is he
like I think it's gotten progressively worse for him. Like, it's like as he gets older, it's gotten worse. So, you know, I got to give it to my mom for obviously like supporting him through all this. Like, it's not easy to be around, but like at their house, it's like the blinds are closed because the bright light bothers him so much, and then he deals with like this ringing in his ear all the time, and you know, like tone of voice and stuff really bothers him. And if he goes like driving a vehicle, like if you hit one pothole or something, like it makes him sick. So like he's literally like just so weak, like mentally he's still tough because he's being able to deal with all this stuff, and he's like, I will never give up like on living as long as I can. Like I'm still, but like what he has to deal on a day-to-day basis, and you know, the ups and downs of like when I do feel good, or you know, that sort of stuff, it's shitty.
What was one other thing I wanted to bring up?
It's interesting to hear you talk about your dad going for a drive, and even a bump affects him, right? Because I have a friend who I knew through work, and you know, this was years ago now, and he hit his head riding his bicycle, and I, you know, before we're educated about this stuff, and I thought, oh, you know, big whoop, you know, and for months he wasn't going to work, and he wasn't himself, and yada yada, and I'm thinking, oh, you know, you start doing the same thing your dad's friends were doing. Well, now it's inside your head. We're this far down the road and you're still having these symptoms. Like, is it in your head?
Yeah.
But then you hear of these other stories and these people with these same symptoms, and it's like, well, whether it's one serious hit or multiple ones, you can have the same symptoms.
Yeah.
And you like you said, you like the type of people that have had it honestly have to be so mentally tough. Like you said, you have a doctor, like there's psychiatrists coming over to evaluate like you. Like, you know, my dad's own brother is telling him, George, it's all in your head.
Yeah.
Like try to get that feeling from your own family member, your own best friends, that it's all mental. Like for me, like that guy, he would just let a flick of the finger say, let's go racing again, and would kill himself trying to like let me go race. But for me, it wasn't fun anymore to see him in that state, right? And now like to see these people treat him like he's some sort of loony.
Yeah,
like,
that sucks.
the only thing I want to do is just frickin' pump their eyes shut.
I can't imagine. Like I had a really hard time with my recovery, but my wife and my girlfriend at the time, my family pushing for me to try. They understood it, and they could see how much pain I was in, and they pushed for me to go get help. And that's actually how I found Revelation. One of my dad's friends was suffering from Lyme's disease, and they treat Lyme's disease at this clinic too. And so that's how I found that place, because my parents were, and my wife were pushing toward, they wanted me to go get it, and they wanted me to go get better and get help, and they saw that. So I can't imagine how that would feel to be, to have your friends telling you it's all in your head, or that's got to be mentally crippling, right? Yeah, and unless you go through it, you just won't know. Like you can't know until you know. That's why.
Like, do you recall like some of your symptoms being like sensitivity to light or like loud noises?
Loud noises were bad. Since that wasn't the worst part. I was so depressed. I was just not in a good place mentally, and I'd get up, go to work, come home from work, go straight to bed.
Yeah,
sleep. It actually went from, I used to be able to not be able to sleep. I went from not sleeping at all to sleeping way too much. Like I would just sleep way too much. So, I mean, it's kind of crazy how different every concussion can be too.
Yeah, and you like sometimes there's like different outlets. Like I listened to the Pulp MX show, right? And there was a rider profile of like Scott Sheik, like who used to be really top pro back in the day kind of thing.
Yeah.
And he was dealing with some concussion stuff, and ended up just resorting to drinking all the time, right? And that's what made him feel better. Well, the guy ended up in jail because he had like all these DUIs and stuff like that down in the States, and he just like kind of went into depth, like back in his day too, they never told him about like what was the severity of like hitting your head. It's like, well, let's just keep racing, and now you deal with this stuff. And he says like on an everyday basis he has to like basically see a counselor a little bit, right? And then it, like obviously has found some like outlets for concussion stuff, but like being able to talk to somebody because he had nobody that understood him.
I think a lot of it is too denialism. Like I was totally in denial. Like I'm okay. I'm okay. Like I couldn't and then I couldn't. Another thing that made it worse for me was I couldn't ride. I would go riding and I just was like in this fog the whole time, and I just couldn't ride. Like felt like I was gonna crash every time because I just couldn't focus on it. So all I did, I like exercise, especially since my concussions. I have to exercise every day. Like I have to get some kind of exercise. So I would just ride my mountain bike every day. That's all I would do. I'd ride my mountain bike or my road bike. That's what I did to keep sane. So I think it's important to find that one thing that can kind of keep you sane. Like I think exercise is important for anyone's mental health too. Like anyone, if you're not exercising, is gonna be more prone to depression, I think, or anxiety.
No, I dream about it. all I do nowadays is just but no, I like on days like obviously because we're getting married this year, it's like I started going to the gym again, right? And now it's like I always have been the type that I need like that drive. I need that drive, why I need to go to the gym.
I'm kind of the same way.
So now it's like we're going back to the gym and I'm like just hoofing it, right? Like just going on the treadmill and just the tits are jiggling, like but I'm like noticing like energy level wise and like how much more clarity in your mind you got,
sleeping better
sleeping better, and
just attitude throughout the day gets better.
I
find.
Yeah, I don't like my dad. He can't do much, right? But
Yeah.
like that 10-minute walk that he can go, walk outside kind of thing, get the body moving just a little
Yeah.
bit is huge. Yeah, I'm gonna have to push him on this revelation thing, and I've been trying to push him for some time, and I think it's gonna get down to the point where it's like, okay, I'm just gonna go there. I'm gonna see if there's any sort of stuff that, you know, like I have sensitivity to light or certain noises kind of thing, how it helped me, and then, you know, just try to get him to gain that courage,
Yeah,
gain
and they
that
actually
trust, right?
they have worked with people long distance too. I think when we first started going there, they were working with someone from like East Coast, were they not? You remember that?
I don't remember.
But they were doing like long distance stuff and making, you know, treating people across the country. So yeah, I believe they can. I mean, I have faith they can help your dad, but I guess you don't know until he goes, or if you can get him.
Well,
to
he
go.
just is so, because he's Dutch for one, right? So he's stubborn to begin with, but he's just like, I'm too old. Like, he's like, the damage is done there. Now he's like, yeah, when I was your guys' age, you saw it heal from anything,
Yeah.
right? And yeah,
So yeah. Any questions?
Just one.
What?
the one that you've posted.
No, I didn't ask. There's only one question. Shellboy MX, what's your favorite track in Alberta?
You want to ask it
George, what's your favorite track in Alberta?
from Shellboy MX?
Yeah, well, if anybody knew me, I was pretty good at
Raymond.
Raymond, right? But,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, race wise, yeah, of course, Raymond was an awesome track. But there's actually this hidden little gem that I used to ride at in Fort McLeod. This guy, he was a dentist and like just built the most, like, do you remember Chick?
Yep.
Yeah, well, he came out and built this guy this
Oh,
track,
really?
right? Yeah. And he's got like this little dozer that's at his house and a little skid steer, and that track was just perfect. Like, and it was all in the trees along the river. That was honestly my favorite track.
Yeah.
Yeah. And Trevor Turner, like, you know the Turners, right?
Yeah,
Shelby
I
Turner?
never been there, but I know they have a pretty cool place.
Yeah. They used to hold races there too. Like, yeah, that was a good track.
Sweet.
How about you?
My favorite track in Alberta? Honestly, do you remember going to like Swan Hills, Slave Lake? You ever go up there?
Oh, I guess we're not
Yeah.
talking just Southern Alberta, hey?
Yeah.
Some of those northern, like Swan Hills was badass on an 80.
It was pretty sweet.
Slave Lake, that
Slave,
start,
I like Slave
40
Lake
guys
a lot.
going.
I never rode there on a big bike, but yeah, I love that place on 80s.
Yeah.
I even liked Fort Mac, even though it was dry and dusty.
Hard
but
packed.
Yeah, it was fun.
Grand Prairie, actually, not
Lloyd
too
Minister,
bad.
Lloyd Minister. There's
Lloyd
a lot
was
of
a
good
pretty
track
fun
upstairs, up north, upstairs.
Yeah. Lloyd Minister, when they had the Widowmaker.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember hitting that first time. It's just boner
So
air.
I overshot it by like 30 feet first time I hit it.
Yeah, and then they actually took it out or made us all roll it or something.
Oh yeah, they yellow flagged the whole thing.
Yeah.
It was stupid.
Well, there was the one year they put the piece of tape up the
Yeah, I
middle.
remember that year.
It's like roll it, jump it on the one side or the other.
Yeah.
And then after that, they just made it either impossible to do or they rolled it out so much you had to.
I think they just
basically-
had the yellow flag going one year
Yeah.
too. Well, there was like 2 or 3 years I went there. It was a mud race, so you
Yeah.
couldn't do it anyway.
Yeah. Who
yeah,
would you say, like, over the years was like your hardest competitor, or like the guy that you hated most?
like as an amateur
Like just as your career, like so far to this day, like
to this
the
day?
guy that's most dominant in your mind to be like, hey, like that guy drove me nuts.
Let's see. Drove me nuts. Hard to say. I know, like, I have a lot of good battles with like Hayden Halstead and Casey Keese, but I don't like hate. I look forward to those battles. Those battles are fun, and I know because I like it because I'm always like a strong to the finish kind of guy. I like it because we can battle out, and then I feel like I can get the edge out on him at the end. But as an amateur,
Did you just like Hayden Halstead just chasing the pro down or what?
yeah, I guess so. I don't know. He's better. He's definitely better than me in the sand, though. He'll whip my ass in the sand.
I've never
sure.
met the guy, but it's
He's
just
a cool
like,
guy. He's a
yeah,
nice guy, yeah.
any MXP magazine you open up, he's just like this
The
hair,
fro,
yeah.
yeah.
I'm like,
Yeah.
frick, that would be hot, like down east, the humidity.
Yeah. God, I gotta think. Can you think of anyone I battled with?
Man, it's hard to think of anybody you battled with as a kid because on like 65s, you were a little bit younger than the Todd Sewell,
Yeah, so
Dean Wilson, Luke
Once they
for
moved out, I kind of
George
took
Grew.
over. Stefan LaRochelle a little bit. I didn't
Yeah,
really.
but I think
was,
you're a little ahead of him.
Yeah.
even.
I actually got a funny
Oh,
story.
Ben Pookie.
No. What's your funny story?
So the first year that I decided I was like, I'm going to go racing, I was like 2004 and I was on 80s, and Dean Wilson was still here, Luke Firth,
Yeah.
Todd Sewell, they all lapped me.
Dude,
Like
they were
there was most races that year that they lapped me. And then at the time I was trying to juggling, I was like, do I become like a swimmer, like wear Speedos every
Yeah.
weekend, or become a motocrosser? And I was really good swimmer, really bad at motocross. So my dad at the end of the year, he decides, he's like, you know what, like, you need to decide what you want to do, right? And I was like, well, I want to race motocross. Like, I'm done with the Speedos, right? But just thinking back, like Todd Sewell, Dean Wilson, they all like lapped me, right?
Yeah.
But they were all so short, and I've always been like pretty tall that you go to the odd like mud race or something, and they're
You
like,
paddle your way through.
yeah. I remember one time Dino, we were at Raymond, and he was on an 80, but he was way too short for it.
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure you had to have like 2 or 4 like 2x4s like
Yeah.
beside his bike,
Yeah.
kind of thing, and he fell over. He's just screaming, crying, right?
Was he on a Honda at the
No,
time?
he was on
Yamaha?
He was on Cowie.
Oh,
Yeah, he
Cowie.
was like young. This is probably even like you were on 50s.
At that point, I remember that. Yeah. Yeah, I couldn't. He was doing like heel clickers off the finish line
Yeah.
and stuff in Calgary. I remember that.
Yeah, he was. Yeah, you think about guys that just shine so much brighter than everybody as like an amateur. Like Dean was just so much faster than everybody then. Yeah. But yeah, no, it's crazy to think that like Todd became like an arch rival, right? Like we raced all the time in the pro class.
Selden, Alberta.
Yeah, and
Those
like
were the battle days of every weekend. George and Todd just following each other around the track for
Yeah.
25 minutes.
And I think I just beat him because I was in better shape. Like I think Todd had a ton of raw talent, like in style wise and stuff.
Yeah,
like
he does.
he was not afraid to ever just crank it, and he's actually really creative. Like I remember with his lines,
his
like
racecraft.
yeah, I remember once at Drumheller, I'm like, I'm following this guy, I'm like, it's like he's gaining on me somewhere, like
Yeah.
and it's all hard packed,
And
like,
it doesn't
it's
look
one
like
line.
he's
I'm like,
he's
where's he
going
gaining
crazy
on me?
fast.
Well, he had found this line that like from this table, and you would shoot across the grass, and then like you'd cut off like I don't know, 60 or 80 feet of track. And I'm like, finally I'm like, see what he was doing, and I'm like riding over my head. I'm like, this kid cannot beat me, right? And yeah, I'm like, so I just remember a few times I'd be like, shit, that kid is just creative, right?
Yeah.
And yeah.
So who's your arch nemesis? Luke Firth? Your worst?
Yeah, like I think, yeah, like him and I, like we had some gnarly battles, and we took each other out lots. And the Allison brothers too.
Yeah.
Like Parker never was really bad, but Jared, for some reason, they were always would talk about this contingency they were getting with the Yamaha.
Yeah.
It drove me crazy. I was like, I'll do whatever it takes to beat them. And we would take each other out a lot too. But I look back now, I'm like, why I lost like some of the joy in riding like Southern Alberta stuff was because then like Luke kind of faded out of it, and then the Allison brothers were like full-time like Canada stuff, so you didn't see him anymore. So for me it was like, well, yeah, okay, it's super fun to go make 1,500 $3,000 a
By
weekend,
yourself.
but it's like it wasn't fun because okay, like the odd weekend Ryland would feel super excited to go racing, and he'd give you a run for like one
Couple
moto,
laps,
and then
yeah.
it's like, well, he's out of it.
Yeah.
And yeah, I don't know. Look for and the Allison brothers. They
Yeah.
were definitely
What do you miss most about racing?
Just I think the atmosphere, like everybody that's there, just it was like a family atmosphere, right? And it seemed like everybody just loved this sport,
Yeah.
and they just would want to come talk to you, right? Like, how's it going? Like, hey, can you help my kid out? And I think I help what I miss most is like helping the younger kids
Yeah.
out and just wanting to like work with them one-on-one. I wouldn't say that I probably found more enjoyment helping people out more than racing.
Okay, that's cool. That's a different perspective, I guess.
Wow.
Yeah, like
Well, it is a small community,
Yeah.
so to speak. So yeah, when you can make an impact on it, that's
yeah,
feel
like
cool.
and just to like see that smile from a kid that's like, hey bud, you're doing really good.
Yeah,
like,
that's an awesome feeling.
Yeah, like and I remember that person when I was younger, where you'd look up to like, Uncle Pete at the time was really, really fast. He's always been fast, right? And he's like, well, you're riding really good today, George. And if you could be that kind of role model to
Yeah.
some of these little kids, like, I mean, it's just, yeah, like for me, it was more of an impact that way than making any sort of money on the weekend.
Yeah, for sure. Pete still riding?
Yeah,
motoing down. I'm pretty sure I raced one in Raymond or Southern Alberta in Raymond in the last spring, and he was motoing down.
Yeah, 65.
Still
66.
throwing it sideways over the triple.
Yeah, and he goes into his boot camps before Vet Nationals in California. He's like, no beer drinking for like a couple months. But he hates to lose. Like he just hates it. Like when he got beat actually this year. If they're gonna listen to this, they're gonna hate me for bringing it up. But he didn't want to talk about it. But he had won 8 like world vet championships in a row, and then he got beat by this guy this year, and he's just like. He's all motivated for next year.
Oh,
again,
fired up right up. Got to get the suspension dialed in. Got to get going for 2020. When is it? Vet Nationals, what, December, November?
Yeah.
October or November, I think.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, your dad used to do it, right?
Yeah, he used to go all the time.
Yeah. I don't know. I went one time, and I think the funnest part was just tagging along with all these older guys because like you never have to buy dinner. Like, hey George, can we get you a hotel tonight? Like, yeah, you bet. Yeah.
Oh jeez.
Good times. Yeah, lots of those old buggers still going.
Oh yeah, I can't believe it. Yeah, he still sends it.
How about Julian Cerny? Is he still riding?
Still motos?
Yeah. That dude was always gnarly. I would sit with him on the starting line, and like sometimes he's wearing like red pants and like green jersey or whatever, and he'd tell me, be like, yeah, okay, work a full day, and then I go to the track, I'll fill up my 450 full of gas, and then I'll fill up my 250 full of gas, I'll run them both empty, then I'll go home. And I'm like, well, I'm not doing near enough.
And you hear guys say, I run a tank through the bike every time I go, but he literally pushes the bike back every single moto.
That shit is so sketchy. I can't believe he does that.
I guess that's why he was like still would get top 10s in the nationals till he was like 40 some years old.
Yeah, well, I think it was last year. The guy comes peeling into the parking lot, unloads his bike really quick. He's like, "Yeah, I just dropped my wife and kids off at Superstore. I just came to do a quick moto."
Yeah. He was actually like an awesome guy to race too, because he's a bigger guy and he wouldn't be afraid to like rub you, but he wouldn't absolutely clean you out. So like him and I remember one time we were racing in Calgary, and my uncle told me, he's like, if these guys are still beating you, you've got no place in the nationals, right? Like you need to beat Julian Cerny anytime you ride. You need to like beat Pete every time you ride, kind of thing. Yeah. But I just remember, one battle that him and I had, just like lap after lap, we're just banging each other, and then after the race he comes over, he like gives a high five. That was awesome. And
yeah, he's just one of those guys that's so like smiley.
Oh yeah,
he's a good guy at the track.
But I don't think you'd ever want to get on his bad side though either. Like, do you ever remember the time when like him and Drew Clegg like just
hated each other? Drew Clegg is a guy that would get under your skin though. I feel like.
Yeah. Well, when you're winning like every weekend in Southern Alberta, taking all the winners away, get under anybody's skin. Yeah,
he was jacked.
Yeah, he was.
I don't know what he's doing these days.
Yeah, he had so much like talent too. Like he was like top 10 in Canada, and then gone. Yeah, like remember Kyle McGlynn too?
Yeah, dude, like that guy was
so fast, and then just boom, gone. Like
he won a national, I believe. Kyle did, I think, right?
Yeah, Morden in the mud. Yeah.
Yeah, he was crazy. Like I remember him starting with the intermediates at Alex and passing the Allisons, passing the pros. Because they would do split gate with pros and intermediates, and he would catch up and pass the pros. Allison's not happy.
Yeah. Well, and he was always quick, McGlynn, too, because I remember when we were younger, like he was one of the few kids like on 80s, like the odd time he could beat Dean.
Yeah. Actually, you know what? One of my fierce competitors on a 65 was Kyle McGlynn. Zach Deanna, too. Me and Zach Deanna would battle it hard.
Yeah. Zach was like, I remember him on 60s. I think it was at Bruderheim, and he broke both of his legs on that massive double.
I think me and you watched it. Yeah.
There was about 8 broken legs off that jump that day.
Yeah, but he was on a 60. Like,
I mean, he was the only. I wasn't jumping it on my 80.
Yeah, no. I think at the time, and then Trey Franklin was there too. Yeah, and he was always pretty quick on like as an
he was
good as a pro.
He was really good.
Too,
good rider in general.
Yeah, but Zach, it was actually, I was in the 80s. It was like a super mini class or 7-Eleven or something. And Zach was right behind me. And my dad said, his kid just jumped this massive double, right? And then they said his legs were like, it was pretty bad.
Yeah, I think he looped it off it. Is that what happened?
Yeah.
Yeah, Zach could be a fun time to get on the podcast.
Zach would be good. Yeah.
Chang.
Chang Corp.
Yeah.
Chang Corp.
Yeah. Yeah, he was always quick too. I remember last year racing. He came out to Medicine Hat and he was always had the quickest, like he had quick bikes.
Oh, yeah.
Like they were fast.
He bought like the Suzuki KTM or the Suzuki Rockstar Suzuki bikes from the year before.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure I cleaned him out in Medicine Hat. So if I never apologized to you,
Oh jeez. All right. Anything else? Anyone got any questions? You got any questions? Question? Anything else?
I got a quick question.
Okay.
Do you think in our sport we overlook the little head impacts because we maybe don't necessarily feel them or they're weak comparison to our big crashes?
Yeah, I think you hit your head even just a little. Like you can tip over in a corner and just smack your head, and it can affect you for sure. I think you like kind of somewhere in the back of your mind you know it, but you don't want it. You kind of in denial, and you're like, I'll be okay, I'll be all right, or I don't want to be a bitch, or just like we were talking about. But even it doesn't have to be a huge impact to really have an effect on you, especially if you do it multiple times back to back to back or whatever.
Yeah. So what do you think, like is there anywhere that it says like if you feel like you've had like a little concussion or you've bumped your head a little bit, like what's the timeline you should take off, or how do you like self-diagnose that
I
stuff?
don't know.
Right? Like,
there's no clear diagnosis or clear way to deal with it. That's part of the biggest problem.
I guess that's why you need to get it out there and
just so
like,
people are aware of it, right?
Should we just go like one extreme to the next? Should we be like never cautious to like overly cautious?
I don't think I don't know. I don't know. We got to figure it out until we get some kind of better way of diagnosing like an actual concussion. There's no real way other than going off of how you feel. Yeah. And then, then you get, I don't know, like then you get guys that maybe are wimps and they didn't have a concussion. Like, I don't know. Like, how do you figure it out?
Yeah. What are like, obviously there's ratings on all these helmets. So you're still running Fox stuff then?
Fox helmet. Yeah.
Okay. Like what is this stuff like rating now? Like for head safety, because like obviously we've heard a lot about like the Fly helmet coming out that they had like all that
Rheon
or whatever. Like how are these older like I don't know, like what, I shouldn't say older because you're Fox sponsored, like they've always been
the Fox has a new one out though. It's quite a bit better than the old one. I was 60 for a long time. I like the technology in the new Fox one. It's got the, what is it called? Do you know what it's called? Do you know what's?
Yeah,
I don't know.
I guess like everything behind each one of these designs is to like
similar,
sort of like it's almost like
energy.
like it's like suspension, right?
Yeah.
Like where you've got like more of like a cushion, right? Versus
as long as you're buying top of the line Fox helmet, 60 helmet, I think Arai helmets are good, Shoei helmets are good. What else is a good helmet? Bell helmets I think are good.
So it's not just anymore looking for that Snell and Dodd approved, right? Like you've got to do your research more or less. Like let's just go, like you said, let's just go for the $400 or $600 helmet.
Yeah,
like just
don't
protect your head, right?
Don't buy a V2 or whatever fucking helmet there is, like some $100 helmet. Don't do that. I think buy a good helmet. I don't know. Like you hear different stuff from different places on which helmet's the best or whatever. You just go with the good helmet. Like 60 has been proven to be good helmet. The new Fox helmet's been good, proven. The Shoei helmet's been proven. The Arai helmet's been proven. The Bell helmet's been proven. Kind of hard to go. I don't know much about the new Fly one, but I heard it's good too. So I don't know.
Yeah. Would you say like now from like years of being like in motocross and stuff like that you could feel the difference between helmets now, or is it more?
It's so circumstantial.
Yeah, it's like obviously they have all these new like things that have come out like after I've stopped racing, right? And it's like, okay, like do I just run my head into the wall and say, yeah, that feels much better? Like like
there's no real way of testing it, right? Like it's like every hit, like there's sometimes you could just tip over in a corner and land on your head the wrong way. You could be wearing the best helmet in the world and you could still knock yourself out.
Well, and that's where people make that argument. You said Dot or Snell approved, right? Well, one's the higher speed, one's the lower speed, one's rotational, one's this, one's that. So no helmet's gonna protect you in every category. The best, but.
Yeah, I remember when I was little, I had I'm pretty sure my dad bought me like a $75 helmet or something.
Same.
I had I hit my head, I had a concussion. And then it's I went to a Thor helmet, and at the time Thor Force, they were I never had one concussion in those helmets. But then I would talk to other guys and they'd be like, I had nothing but concussions in those. So it's well,
you hit your head hard enough, it doesn't matter what you're wearing. Well, I mean, what you're wearing will help you to an extent, but a lot of it's just the whiplash, like how hard you smack your head. Like if you have a lot of rotational force going, you're going to get whiplash. And a big part of the concussions is the slapping of the jaw. Yeah. So, I mean, mouth guard, I don't wear
mouth
one, but
guards,
I want to start. I was going to
You
look
always
into
wear
getting
one, didn't you?
No, I never wore one racing, but always in hockey.
Yeah.
And it just, there was always, there was one family that came to the Southern Albertas that would always wear the mouth guards. And I just couldn't see myself racing with something in my mouth, just the airflow blockage and stuff. But again, how do you put a price on the safety?
Yeah, I mean, I'm going to look into it. If you can get, I think the new ones are really good. They're molded and they stick in there good. But I already ride like a psychopath. I'm always like,
yeah, you're
the possum hole. But
yeah. I rode with I got one size or whatever perfectly for my teeth, put it in there, and thinking you're in great shape, and it's I'm just hoofing it and then I'm my throat is getting dry, and you're at Raymond, there's Raymond dust, I'm I can't wear this fucking thing, it gotta throw it out. That was another time you hit your head hard and you came to, and I was like, Jared, where's your and then we're on our way down, we were at Kuya Creek too, and we had to drive him back to their place in Canyon Lake, and he's puking all the way back.
Yeah, that was a rough one. Hit my head too many times.
But I guess the story that went was that it was over a single jump and you scrubbed too hard and you high sided. Was that not it? Because I don't think we actually told anybody it was on the Supercross track.
No, we never told anyone it was on the Supercross track.
I haven't even heard this story.
It was at the ranch. I think it was fucking pouring rain too, was it not?
Yeah. And then so you broke your wrist, and I think 1 week later that Bray Mason kid, he broke his wrist too. Did he not?
I think he actually broke his wrist. He
just wanted to copy it.
Yeah. He was just being a little bit. I don't think he actually broke his wrist though. He hit his head or something.
From what I saw though, that clearly wasn't their first day on the Supercross track, and they were actually riding it pretty good.
Yeah, I was sending it, but it was raining, and I'm like, I gotta send the triple.
Did you do the triple when it was dry?
I did the triple when it was dry, and I guess I just got wheel spin off the face, and I just cased. I don't even remember it. I don't remember what happened.
I do remember it because it's right behind him. He came out of this corner and he hit it I think as hard as you could in second, and he just was boner aired it, and it came up so hard. I still remember seeing the frame mark, and I went and put my bike aside, and Jared comes to or whatever. And I was like, you all right? Yeah, bro. And he's like, I think did you break your jaw too or no?
I broke my jaw. Yeah.
And he never cried.
Oh, 16 years old.
Yeah, that was the one thing though. We did everything on that Supercross track except the triple.
That
for
one
some
triple.
reason, it was right out of the corner. I was on a 450 too, and I was like, okay, if Jared does it, I'll do it. But if Jared ain't doing it, I ain't doing it, because I couldn't see the landing. The freaking face was so steep that
there was some other guy apparently, a good Supercross racer, that did the same thing. Apparently, I don't know if that triple was really that doable. It was a big triple.
Yeah.
Okay.
How many languages do you speak?
How many languages do you speak, George?
Well, when I'm concussed, I can speak a totally different language.
You speak in poltergeist.
I can speak a little Dutch.
A little Dutch?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit of German.
Oh, yeah?
Not much German. Just one of my good buddies growing up, he was low German or high German. I don't even know. It's pretty close to Dutch. And then Dutch, I'll know the best things to say to my fiance kind of thing.
Yeah.
Before you go into the bedroom or something. Yeah. How about you?
It's just English. I took 3 years of French. I failed them all, but yeah, no French for me. I don't know. It's Feliz Navidad or whatever. I don't fucking know. Whatever.
How about you?
No. I tried learning French for a bit, got into it, completely forgot everything.
Yeah. So I like, are they asking if we could do it fluently? Because fluently, I can only speak English.
Yeah, where this is our only fluent podcast language here.
Yeah.
That's it. That's the only question.
What was your? You've ridden a lot of bikes over the years. What was the most memorable bike you ever owned?
2012 KX 450. I just like that bike for some reason tracked like, I don't know, by far the best 450
I rode that bike too. It was a good bike. I don't know what it was. It was just like the power was super like smooth and just like right to the ground. I don't know what it was.
Yeah. Well, and then like KYB suspension on
Yeah.
there. I've always for some reason really liked KYB suspension. And then actually for 250 the Honda 13 was really good.
Yeah.
Everybody always thought I ran a big bore. FYI, I never did.
Who said that?
Everybody.
Really?
Like I remember the Allison saying like, yeah, we're gonna protest you. Like there's no way that if you whole shot us and you're like 40 more pounds than us, you've got to have a 290. So I just said, well,
290.
I'm like, yeah, I run a 290, been running 290 for years. I just wanted that money out of it, right? Like you're making,
they protest you and you get the money.
Yeah.
I ran a big bore in because I was so small on a 250 when I first went intermediate. So I had a big bore. I rode in the 450 class. I've ridden 450 intermediate with a big bore. My 250 was better than my big bore. I had like a 302.
Yeah, I was gonna say, wasn't your big boy a bit of a?
It wasn't that good.
Yeah,
it wasn't that good, and we had to run like some weird gearing on it. And to run the right gearing to make it work properly, we just coached clutches. I don't know. It wasn't. We never got it working very well. Honestly, I've been better off racing at 250.
Yeah. I would actually say like the one thing that I wish could have been somewhat feasible was to be able to like know, like the only thing I ever did to a 250 was just put a hot cam in or a high compression piston, and that was it, just to feel like what a race motor was like you hear Dean talk about like his Canada Suzuki, like and that thing sounded mean, and he's like that thing was slow compared to his pro circuit.
Oh, the Cowie, you mean? The Canada Cowie,
and I just would like, you know, like, or you hear some of the guys like on the Royal Distributing like KTM at the time and stuff, it's like these bikes sound so mean. Like if I could just ride like
they're talking about like
250.
the guys are talking about how much of a piece of shit their bike was last year. Okay, I'm riding the same bike, but it's pretty much stock. So
like try to be 220 on a 250.
Yeah, I
can
can
race
imagine.
guys like Jared that are like 5'2", 5'4",
5'7", 8", 5'8". But
yeah,
the bikes
more
are
cardio.
Since you retired from the 250 class, the bikes are good now. Like even the Honda and the Honda, the Husky, they're all good, I think, except for the Suzuki. It's all I do basically is do a little bit of head work, put a high comp piston, and throw an ignition on it, and it's good to go.
Yeah, well, and they say that you can make like a big power difference with just ignition.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Fuel injection too makes a big difference.
I guess you probably never rode a fuel injected 250.
Yeah, the Honda N13 was fuel injected.
They did have fuel injected.
And that was awesome.
That would have been the first year then, right?
Yeah, or did Cowie maybe have
Cowie did it in like 12. Yeah.
Okay, yeah, so I rode that too.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. But I remember the times in like 2009, 2010 where you're going to like just about every other race in the morning because it's cooler. It's like you got to put a different main jet in or a pilot jet or something. And then for Moto 2, Dad's pulling the car apart again.
That's
like
insane
we gotta...
to think about doing that stuff. Like,
yeah.
Oh, where they used to have the jetting section at the track. You have to take your bike down to the straightaway to jet it.
Yeah. Yeah. I would say that after all of those years of racing, I never pulled my motors apart. Yeah. Like I never did any of the work myself. The only thing I could really do was just like change my tires and tighten my spokes, and that was it.
Yeah, change your sprockets, chains. No.
Yeah, well, my dad said a lot of the times I'd go, instead of going lefty loosey, I'd go like just more tight until I stripped them.
Oh shit.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Just wasn't focused.
Oh shit.
Now if you gotta like work on your own bike at home, it's like I wish I would have paid attention.
Really? I'm pretty good. I can do a top end on a 4-stroke. I don't like to, but I can do it if I absolutely have to.
Yeah, but I think you already on 60s were working on your bikes and stuff.
Yeah,
like,
my dad was pretty like adamant on. He didn't even really like. He would do the work, but he's like, if I'm gonna be working on your bike, you got to be out in the shop helping me or learning how to do this shit.
Yeah.
Yeah. He's like, or else I'm not doing it.
Yeah, my dad would make me sit there and hand him the tools so
Yeah.
I know what tool did what and how to do it.
And then he can't get the thing apart. He can't get the clip in the piston.
Yeah.
Oh, what the? And he's freaking out at you about it.
Yeah. Well, I remember handing my dad's the tools, but I don't remember what he was working on.
you were just sitting there.
Yeah.
Oh shit. So, what do you think you've learned the most from racing, like life lessons?
Well, personal skills, like interacting with people. I think you learn at a pretty young age, like how to, like if you're really frustrated or angry or something, like how to keep yourself composed. I mean, after doing riding schools, or if you ever had to like talk like at a banquet or something, like you don't get those kind of public speaking skills at school, right?
Yeah.
Like, yeah, and determination. Like I think if you ever like put your mind to something, like motocross taught you that it's like either if you don't put the effort in, well, this is where you're kind of gonna be. If you're gonna like discipline yourself, like you can basically, yeah, how am I supposed to word this? Just like self-discipline, right?
Yeah.
Like either like when you're motivated, you're in. If you're not motivated, you're not. Like just like, and how that like relates to your everyday life. It's like if I don't want to get up for work, like, you know, like your mind can take you so many different places if you don't know those kind of ups and downs, like whether from racing or whatever. Like it doesn't really translate to your day-to-day life, right?
Yeah, I know what you mean. Like, yeah, just knowing that if you put your mind to something, you can accomplish it. And yeah, where was like,
yeah, I know we might have to blank that out because my whole thing didn't make.
No,
a lot
it
of
made
sense.
sense. It made
But
sense.
I would say, yeah, the public
speaking. Yeah, that's a good. I never really thought about how much that actually would help you, having to go up for like the AMSA banquet or whatever and speak.
Well, and you're almost forced to, because I when I was younger, like I was shy.
Yeah.
Like I could not get up in front of people and talk. And like then like at 16, it's like you're thrown into the pro class and it's like you have to live this somewhat different life than your buddies that are like in junior class still. Like now you got to start writing resumes and you got to be personal with people and
you have to represent yourself properly.
Yeah, and I think that definitely was like a big thing that I can use like day-to-day life wise.
Yeah, that's a good one. Yeah, anything else? How long have we been going for?
Supercross started yet?
Oh, it started like 3.
I was gonna say, I was like, we gotta check Twitter.
They've been almost 2 hours. I think about 2 hours in.
We can probably.
Is it 4 already?
It's
Yeah, it's
4:19.
Oh, I gotta be at that thing at 5.
Okay, we'll wrap this bitch up. All right. Yeah, thanks for tuning in, guys. Thanks, George, for coming all the way out here. Yeah, appreciate it. It's good. Had fun. Good time. We gotta do this again with Keelan, maybe.
Yeah,
Or
Keelan
fucking-
actually. I like of the guys sitting here like in the pro class, I was able to, I think, race you maybe a little bit, not as much as Keelan, but Keelan was always like super clean guy to race. Like he never took me out. And I think what I liked about like his family and stuff was just that they were like true grit, like hard workers kind of thing. And Keelan like was never the bullshitter type guy. Like he actually puts in the work and now how he represents himself, like and how he's moving forward to like get his name out there and stuff. I think it's good. I think you guys are gonna have a good year.
Yep, should be good. All right, thanks, Chris. Thanks,
Welcome.
George. Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
All right, peace out.